Just before the months of D-Day, 1945, Adolf Hitler meets with one Hiroshi Oshima to discuss the possibility of an Allied invasion of Europe. Hitler is confident that the Allies would land at Pas-de-Calais, but fortunately for the Allies, this is exactly what they wanted him to think. In June 28, 1919, Johannes Bell and Hermann Müller walked into the Palace of Versailles to sign the highly protested treaty that would place the blame of World War I on the state of Germany. The treaty, known as the Treaty of Versailles, swore payment of large reparations to the Allies, demilitarization of the Rhineland, a return of Allied territory, and the disarmament of Germany. Suffering in Germany was worsened by extraordinarily high inflation and a lack of reform by the Weimar Republic, as well as resentment throughout the entire population for the loss of World War I. Extremes on both sides of the political spectrum began to rise, as demonstrated by the rise of the Communist as well as the eventual takeover of Germany by the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or the Nazi Party.
The rise of violent nationalism in Germany, as well as the combination with fascism, would result in violence and warfare as Germany began to aggressively push for more power and land under Adolf Hitler beginning in 1936. Conflicts between other powers like the USSR, the UK, France, and the US would allow Hitler to rise to power and seize land until Hitler began to outright attack nations such as Poland, Belgium, and France in 1940. The failure of what would become the Allied powers to cooperate diplomatically would lead to the rise of Nazi Germany and the horrific acts committed by the German regime, as well as the war that the Allies had so desperately tried to avoid. The entry of the United States into World War II in 1941 led to various campaigns in northern Africa that would stall in a stalemate. Increased pressure on Soviet forces caused by this stalemate would lead to Stalin pushing for the opening of a Western Front in Europe at the Tehran Conference in 1943. It seemed now that an amphibious invasion, the likes of which the world had never seen before, had become the only option, leading to the creation of both Operation Overlord, or D-Day, as well as Operation Fortitude. The London Controlling Section, led by Colonel Jean Bavon, would lead Operation Fortitude, putting together false information that was communicated through various methods, such as falsified radio traffic from Dover Castle, fuselage, or the Ghost Army, and most notably through double agents. The operation was focused on convincing German High Command that D-Day would occur primarily at Pas-de-Calais rather than Normandy.
Well, when we went took off for France, I don't know if there was moonlight or not, but I could see. And I was sitting where I could see right out the door. And the ocean was full of ships. Big ones, little ones. I swear I think there must have been rowboats in there also. But every kind of ship in the world was heading for France. And the sky was full of airplanes. All kinds, mostly. Other than ours, the transports, fighters protecting us. And I saw that, I thought, well, we must win this war with all this force that we have.
The key to Operation Fortitude's success was the utilization of double agents by the Double Cross Committee, such as Agents Bronx, Tricycle, and Agent Garbo. Agent Garbo is most well known for his pivotal role in the British deception, as he created an entirely false network of 26 informants, used 500 coded messages, and was trusted so highly the so-called intelligence he had provided was mentioned 86 times in highly classified German intelligence summaries. In addition, Garbo was awarded the Iron Cross and was able to convince Hitler that the initial D-Day invasion at Normandy was a mere distraction from the true invasion that would come at Pas-de-Calais, delaying reinforcements and buying precious time for the Allied troops to establish a beachhead. The indirect communication between the UK and Nazi Germany through double agents was key to the Allied victory in the European theatre of the Second World War. The tactics used by the Allies were successful in convincing Hitler that Pas-de-Calais would be the main invasion point. On June 6, 1944, D-Day, the combined Allied force of more than 140,000 Americans, Canadians, and British soldiers would land at Normandy to find only 60,000 German soldiers. This was a mere fraction of the 800,000 troops stationed in France at the time of the invasion, demonstrating the overall success of Operation Fortitude. The operation had partially relied on the correct assumption that the Germans would intercept fabricated radio traffic from Dover Castle, which was a major center of operation during World War II, contributing to the legitimacy of the so-called communications that had been obtained by Germany. Dummy tanks and airplanes utilized by fuselage to mock Allied forces building on the coastline near Pas-de-Calais also helped to convince the Germans that an invasion at Pas-de-Calais was imminent. The deadly misunderstanding on the Germans' part, caused by Operation Fortitude and its double agents, was critical to Operation Overlord's overall success and would lead to the collapse of Nazi Germany. To Hitler, this was an absolute disaster. The front in Eastern Europe had come to a screeching halt, and now there were hundreds of thousands of Allied troops storming into the heart of France. Delayed response from the forces located at Pas-de-Calais caused havoc in German high command. A tide had just turned in the fateful Sea of War, a tide not particularly to the Germans' favor. Skipping ahead to February 1945, it was over. The Allies had successfully repelled the Germans' final attempt to once again blitzkrieg through and capture France at the Battle of the Bulge. The Soviets, too, were racing to Berlin to seek the ultimate revenge on the Nazis for their horrific acts against the Slavic peoples. With absolutely no hope left, Hitler, tucked away in his bunkers with only a few close generals and staff, committed suicide. German unconditional surrender after 6 long years of war had finally come on May 7, 1945.
Operation Fortitude's overwhelming success would have two major impacts: its influence on the new methods of espionage and its influence on the modern world as we know it. The deception tactics that had been effectively utilized during the operation would prove its usefulness in double agents in particular. This would be shown in the Cold War, where both the United States and the Soviet Union used double agents such as Ulrich Imes to their advantage during the conflict. Both world powers would have spies in high positions of government, shown by the Red Scare and the McCarthy trials. As said by Joseph McCarthy, while I cannot take time to name all the men in the State Department who have been named as members of the Communist Party and members of a spy ring, I have here in my hand a list of 205. This would exemplify how Operation Fortitude's demonstration of the might of double agents would lead to their pervasive use during future world conflicts. The second impact of Operation Fortitude is that its success in causing a crucial misunderstanding ultimately allowed for Operation Overlord's success, which would lead to the end of the European front in World War II. This would massively impact the timeline of World War II as a whole, as it allowed for the Allies to focus their efforts on forcing Japan's surrender and the eventual end of the second major global conflict. Overall, the impacts of Operation Fortitude's miscommunication on both the success of D-Day and world conflicts like the Cold War demonstrates how truth can be manipulated in the fog of war to influence game-changing decisions.